Undercover CEO orders lunch at his own diner, stops cold when he hears two cashiers behind the counter. Why did the CEO visit his own restaurant without revealing who he was? What did the two cashiers say that made him stop in his tracks? Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Afterglow Reckoning Tales, where secret visits, hidden behavior, and shocking workplace truths are finally exposed. Before today's story begins, please subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss another gripping episode. Thank you for every view, comment, share, and moment you spend supporting our channel. Your continued encouragement helps Afterglow Reckoning Tales grow and reach viewers around the world. Let us know in the comments where in the world you are watching from and what time it is there right now. We sincerely appreciate having you here with us. Now, get comfortable, listen closely to every word, and let us step into the first moments of today's revealing story. Don't serve him too fast. Guys like that never tip anyway. The words were quiet. Almost invisible. But they landed harder than a shout. At 12:17 p.m. inside Bennett's Diner, a place known for warm coffee, homemade pies, and decades of loyal customers, those 8 words revealed something no company report had ever shown. Behind the counter, 2 employees laughed softly, believing the man sitting 3 feet away was nobody important. They were wrong. Marcus Bennett sat alone in the corner booth, wearing a faded black hoodie, simple jeans, and old sneakers. No luxury watch. No security team. No assistant waiting beside him. Just a man ordering lunch. At least, that was what everyone thought. The truth was far different. Marcus Bennett was the founder and CEO of Bennett Hospitality Group, the man who built the diner chain from a single neighborhood restaurant into one of the fastest-growing food brands in America. But today, he wasn't there as the owner. He was there as a customer. Because numbers could tell him how many meals were sold. Reports could tell him how much profit a location made. But numbers could never tell him what happened when nobody thought the person watching had power. Marcus picked up the menu and looked around the room. The diner was busy. Families filled the booths. Workers stopped by during lunch breaks. Elderly customers sat near the windows, enjoying their usual coffee. Everything looked perfect. Almost too perfect. The employees smiled when familiar customers walked in. They greeted regulars by name. But Marcus noticed something else. A young man entering in a worn jacket waited almost 5 minutes before anyone acknowledged him. A woman carrying a child was given a menu without a word. Meanwhile, a businessman in a suit received a smile before he even reached the counter. Marcus didn't say anything. He simply watched. He had learned a long time ago that people revealed the most when they believed they were safe. Behind the register, Tyler Reynolds leaned toward Emily Carter while pretending to organize receipts. Tyler was the kind of employee who knew how to look professional when managers were around. But when he thought nobody important was listening, the mask disappeared. "Another one," Tyler whispered, glancing toward Marcus. Emily followed his eyes. "The guy in the hoodie?" Tyler smirked. "Yeah. Probably just here because it's cheap." Marcus lowered his coffee cup slowly. He didn't move. He didn't react. But something inside him became very still. Because he had heard those words before. Not those exact words. But the meaning. The assumption. The quiet judgment. Years ago, before the billion-dollar company, before the headlines, before the success, Marcus was just another young black man walking into rooms where people had already decided who he was before he spoke. He remembered job interviews where people looked at his clothes before his resume. He remembered meetings where people questioned his ideas until someone else repeated them. He remembered the feeling of being underestimated. And now, decades later, sitting inside a business with his own name on the building, he was hearing that same attitude again. But this time, he wasn't powerless. He was listening. Tyler placed a receipt on the counter and laughed. Some people really think they belong anywhere just because they walk in. Emily smiled. I know what you mean. Marcus looked down at his untouched meal. The food had arrived. But he wasn't thinking about lunch anymore. He was thinking about trust. About culture. About what his company had become when nobody believed the owner was watching. Slowly, he reached into his pocket and checked his phone. One message was waiting. From his executive assistant. Everything okay, Marcus? He stared at the screen for a moment. Then typed only 4 words. Stay on standby. He placed the phone back on the table. Across the diner, Tyler and Emily continued talking, completely unaware that the man they had already judged was about to become the reason everything inside Bennett's diner would change forever. Because Marcus Bennett didn't come there to punish anyone. He came there to find the truth. And the truth had just introduced itself. The message appeared simple. Almost harmless. But Marcus Bennett knew that sometimes the smallest words revealed the biggest problems. Because behind every successful company, there was a question no financial report could answer. What happens when the people representing your name believe nobody important is watching? The lunch rush continued inside Bennett's diner. Plates moved across the counter. Coffee poured into ceramic mugs. The sound of conversations filled the warm, familiar space. But Marcus was no longer focused on his meal. His attention was on the 2 people behind the register. Tyler Reynolds and Emily Carter. 2 employees who had mastered the appearance of professionalism. At least when someone with authority was nearby. Tyler smiled at customers when they approached the counter. He greeted regulars with confidence. He knew exactly when to stand straight and when to lower his voice. But Marcus had seen another side. The side that appeared when employees believed certain people didn't matter. Tyler glanced toward Marcus's booth again. Still sitting there, he whispered. Emily looked over. Maybe he's waiting for someone. Tyler laughed quietly. Maybe he's waiting for a discount. The 2 shared a small laugh. A laugh that lasted only a few seconds. But Marcus felt the weight of it. He slowly picked up his coffee. The cup was warm in his hand. The room around him suddenly felt colder. Marcus had spent 20 years building Bennett Hospitality Group on one simple belief: a company's true character wasn't written in its advertisements. It was revealed in the moments nobody thought would be seen. And right now, he was seeing something. Something that didn't belong. He looked toward the counter again. A young black customer wearing a delivery uniform stepped inside. His name was written on his work badge. Andre. He walked toward the register after finishing a long shift. Hey, could I get the lunch special? Andre asked politely. Tyler didn't look up immediately. He continued scrolling through his phone. After several seconds, he finally raised his eyes. Name? Andre repeated his order. Tyler sighed. Yeah, we heard you. The tone was different. Not openly aggressive. Not something that could easily be reported. Just enough disrespect hidden between words. Marcus noticed. He noticed everything. The delayed greeting. The impatient expression. The way Tyler looked at Andre's uniform before looking at his face. It reminded Marcus of something he had experienced years ago. A younger version of himself standing outside a business office, dressed in a simple suit, holding a folder full of ideas. The receptionist had looked at him for 3 seconds. 3 seconds was all it took. Before she decided he wasn't someone worth prioritizing. Marcus remembered the feeling. Not anger. Not even disappointment. Something deeper. The feeling of being measured before being understood. Back inside the diner, Andre waited quietly. Tyler pushed the receipt toward him without saying thank you. Marcus watched as Andre stepped aside. No complaint. No argument. Just silence. And that silence bothered Marcus more than an insult would have. Because silence meant people had become used to it. Marcus reached for his phone beneath the table. A message from his assistant, Rachel Collins, appeared. "Do you want me to review this location's employee records?" Marcus stared at the screen. For a moment, he considered ignoring it. Maybe this was one bad moment. Maybe he was seeing too much into a simple interaction. Then he looked back at Tyler and Emily. They were laughing again. Not because something was funny. Because they felt comfortable. Comfortable enough to forget there was a human being sitting nearby who could hear every word. Marcus typed. "Not yet." He paused. Then added another message. "I want to see what happens next." He put the phone away. The CEO inside him wanted answers. But the man who had lived through those moments wanted understanding first. He wanted to know if this was an accident. Or if it was culture. Because companies didn't fail because of one bad decision. They failed when bad behavior became normal. And Marcus Bennett had just discovered something far more serious than two careless employees. He had discovered a crack inside the foundation of a business that carried his name. And he was about to find out how deep it went. The diner was still full. The coffee machines were still running. The sound of plates, conversations, and footsteps still filled the room. But for Marcus Bennett, everything had changed. Because sometimes the most revealing moments don't happen in a boardroom. They happen when people forget they are being watched. Marcus sat quietly in his booth, his untouched meal slowly losing its warmth. His eyes remained fixed on the counter. Not with anger. Not with revenge. With attention. He was studying something far more important than one employee's attitude. He was studying a culture. Tyler Reynolds continued moving behind the register with the confidence of someone who believed he controlled the room. He knew which customers deserved patience. He knew which customers deserved a smile. And Marcus noticed the difference. A wealthy-looking couple walked in wearing expensive clothing. Tyler immediately straightened his posture. "Welcome back," he said warmly. The couple smiled. "Good to see you again." But moments later, another customer stepped forward. A black woman wearing a simple work uniform. She asked a question about a menu item. Tyler barely looked up. "It's on the board." The woman glanced back at the menu. "I was just asking if the sandwich comes with fries." Tyler sighed. "It says what comes with it." The woman nodded quietly. She ordered. She paid. She left. No argument. No complaint. But Marcus saw the look on her face as she walked away. The look of someone who had decided it wasn't worth the fight. And that bothered him. Because businesses often measured success by the customers who returned. But they rarely measured the customers who never came back. Marcus reached for his coffee. He remembered when Bennett's Diner was only one small restaurant. Before the expansion. Before the investors. Before the success. He used to stand behind the same kind of counter. Wiping tables. Taking orders. Listening to customers. He remembered one lesson his mother taught him when he was young. "Marcus, people will show you who they are when they think you have nothing to give them." Those words stayed with him. And today, they were proving true. Behind the counter, Tyler leaned closer to Emily. "You see what I mean?" Emily looked confused. "What?" "People judge this place before they even understand it." Tyler laughed. "Look around. You can usually tell who belongs here." Marcus heard every word. The sentence hung in the air. Heavy. Uncomfortable. Like smoke that nobody wanted to admit was there. A few customers nearby looked up. They heard it too. But nobody spoke. Not yet. That was the dangerous part. Silence had a way of protecting the wrong people. Then Jordan Williams walked out from the kitchen carrying a tray of fresh food. Jordan had worked at Bennett's Diner for 6 years. He knew every employee. Every regular customer. Every corner of the building. And unlike Tyler and Emily, he noticed what was happening. His eyes met Marcus's for a brief moment. There was no confusion. Only understanding. Jordan had seen this before. The small comments. The unfair assumptions. The way certain customers were treated differently. But speaking up was never simple when your paycheck depended on staying quiet. Tyler noticed Jordan looking toward Marcus. "What?" Tyler asked. Jordan looked away. "Nothing." Tyler smiled. "That's what I thought." Marcus watched the exchange. And in that moment, he realized something. The problem wasn't only Tyler and Emily. The problem was that people around them had learned to look away. That was how unhealthy cultures survived. Not because everyone agreed, but because enough people stayed silent. Marcus slowly opened his phone again. This time, he didn't message Rachel. He opened the internal employee system. A few taps. A few searches. And within seconds, he saw what he needed. Customer complaints. Ignored reviews. Repeated concerns about attitude. Patterns. Not mistakes. Patterns. Marcus leaned back. The diner suddenly felt smaller. The walls seemed closer. Because the issue was no longer hidden. It was documented. He closed the screen. Across the room, Tyler laughed again. Completely unaware. Completely confident. He still believed Marcus was just another customer sitting in a corner. Someone without influence. Someone without a voice. But Tyler didn't understand one thing. The quietest person in the room was often the person with the most power. And Marcus Bennett had just finished watching enough. The test was no longer about what they would say. Now he wanted to see what they would do. Because the next customer walking through those doors was about to reveal everything. The next customer who walked through the door had no idea he was about to change everything. Neither did Tyler Reynolds. Because Tyler still believed he understood exactly how the world worked. He believed he could recognize importance by appearance. By clothing. By status. By the way someone entered a room. And that belief was about to be tested. The diner doors opened slowly. A man stepped inside wearing a simple blue jacket, work boots, and a baseball cap pulled low over his head. He looked tired. The kind of tired that came from years of working hard and rarely being noticed. His name was Daniel Brooks. A construction worker who had stopped by after finishing a morning shift. Daniel walked toward the counter and smiled politely. "Hey, can I get the daily special?" Tyler looked up. For a brief second, his expression changed. Not because he recognized Daniel. But because he judged him. Marcus noticed. He saw the same pattern again. The same hesitation. The same silent decision made before a single word was spoken. Tyler grabbed the order pad. "What size?" Daniel looked confused. "Excuse me? The meal comes in different sizes." "Oh. The regular one is fine." Tyler nodded without emotion. "Anything else?" Daniel looked at the menu. "Actually, could I get extra sauce?" Tyler sighed. A small sound. Almost nothing. But enough. Enough to show frustration. Enough to make someone feel like a burden. Marcus sat still. His fingers rested on the table. He wanted to believe this was just one person having a bad day. But he had already seen too much. Because the problem wasn't one rude comment. It was the pattern. It was the comfort. It was how easily disrespect appeared when certain people walked through the door. Daniel paid for his meal and moved to the side. He didn't complain. He didn't challenge Tyler. He simply waited. And Marcus recognized that silence. It was the silence of someone who had learned that speaking up often came with a price. Across the diner, Jordan watched from the kitchen entrance. His expression changed. He looked uncomfortable. Because he knew exactly what was happening. Jordan had worked there long enough to remember when Bennett's diner was different. When employees knew every customer mattered. When the company's message wasn't just written on posters near the entrance. But something had shifted. Somewhere along the way, certain employees had forgotten that service wasn't about deciding who deserved respect. It was about giving respect before you knew anything about a person. Marcus watched Daniel take his seat. Then he looked back at Tyler. The cashier was already laughing with Emily again. Like nothing happened. Like Daniel's experience didn't matter. Like nobody was watching. That was when Marcus made his decision. He reached into his pocket and opened his phone. This time, he didn't hesitate. He sent a message to Rachel. Start a complete review of this location. A few seconds later, the reply came. Employee records? Customer complaints? Management reports? Marcus looked around the diner. At the customers. At the employees. At the building that carried his family name. Then he typed, everything. Because he no longer wanted to know what happened on the surface. He wanted the truth underneath. The truth that customers felt but rarely reported. The truth employees hid when managers walked in. The truth that only appeared when people believed there would be no consequences. Marcus placed his phone down. For the first time that afternoon, he felt something stronger than disappointment. He felt responsibility. Because this diner wasn't just a business. It was a promise. A promise that anyone who walked through those doors would be treated with dignity. And someone had broken that promise. The question was no longer whether something was wrong. Marcus already knew. The question was how far it went. Then, just as he prepared to leave, Tyler made one more mistake. He looked toward Marcus's table. He smiled. Not a friendly smile. A mocking one. And he walked closer. Hey, Tyler said. Marcus looked up calmly. Tyler pointed toward the empty plate. You've been sitting here a long time. The room became quieter. Marcus studied his face. Because sometimes people reveal the most when they think they have already won. Tyler continued. Everything okay? Marcus looked at him for a moment. Then answered softly. Actually, a pause. I'm just learning a lot. Tyler laughed. He didn't understand. Not yet. But soon, everyone inside Bennett's diner would learn something too. The man sitting in the corner wasn't just a customer. He was the person who built the entire place. And he had finally seen enough. You know what's funny? Tyler said with a smile. Some people walk into places like this and think they deserve special treatment. Marcus Bennett looked at him quietly. Because he understood something Tyler didn't. The most dangerous moments were not always the loud ones. Sometimes, the truth revealed itself through a simple sentence. A sentence spoken by someone who believed they had nothing to lose. The diner had become quieter. Not completely silent. But quiet enough that people could feel something had changed. Customers nearby glanced toward the counter. Jordan Williams stopped moving for a moment behind the kitchen doors. Even Emily Carter looked uncomfortable. Because Tyler wasn't just talking anymore. He was showing everyone exactly who he was. Marcus remained seated. His expression never changed. The same calm face. The same steady eyes. The same man who had walked in earlier looking like an ordinary customer. But inside, Marcus was making a decision. For years, he had built his company around one principle: people should never have to prove they deserve respect. Respect should come first. Before money. Before appearance. Before status. But Tyler Reynolds had forgotten that. And worse. He had forgotten it while representing Marcus's company. Tyler leaned against the counter. "So," he said, looking at Marcus's simple clothes, "you've been sitting here a while. Everything good?" Marcus looked at his plate. Then back at Tyler. "Yes." Tyler waited. Almost expecting Marcus to complain. But Marcus didn't. He simply asked, "Do you enjoy working here?" The question caught Tyler off guard. He laughed slightly. "What kind of question is that?" "A simple one." Tyler crossed his arms. "I guess." Marcus nodded slowly. "That's good." A strange answer. Not the reaction Tyler expected. Because Tyler wanted anger. He wanted an argument. Something he could dismiss. But Marcus gave him nothing. And that bothered him. People like Tyler were comfortable when they controlled the conversation. They were comfortable when others reacted emotionally. But calmness was something they couldn't manipulate. Behind the counter, Emily whispered, "Why are you still talking to him?" Tyler shrugged. "Because he thinks he's important." Marcus heard it. Again. Another assumption. Another judgment. But this time, he didn't just hear words. He heard the reason behind them. Tyler wasn't concerned about Marcus being rude. He was concerned about Marcus not knowing his place. And that was the moment Marcus understood. This wasn't about customer service. This wasn't about one employee having a bad attitude. This was about how some people decided who deserved dignity. Marcus slowly stood up. The movement caught everyone's attention. Tyler looked surprised. "Leaving?" Marcus picked up his jacket. "Yes." Tyler smiled. "Hope everything was okay." Marcus paused. He looked around the diner. At the customers. At Jordan. At the employees. At the walls carrying the Bennett name. Then he looked back at Tyler. It was very informative. Tyler frowned. "What does that mean?" Marcus gave a small smile. "It means I learned exactly what I came here to learn." For the first time, Tyler looked uncertain. There was something different about Marcus now. Something he couldn't explain. Marcus walked toward the exit. But before he reached the door, his phone vibrated. A message from Rachel. "Marcus, I found more reports. This location has repeated complaints going back 8 months. Marcus stopped. 8 months. Not one bad day. Not one misunderstanding. A pattern. He stared at the message. Then another notification appeared. Several employees reported concerns but never followed up. Marcus closed his eyes for a brief moment. Because now he understood the full picture. Some people had been hurt. Some people had spoken. And somehow, nobody listened. He placed the phone back into his pocket. The door was only a few steps away. But Marcus didn't leave immediately. He turned around one last time. Tyler was still behind the counter. Still confident. Still unaware. Still believing the man in the hoodie was just another customer who would disappear. Marcus looked at him. And quietly said, "Tomorrow is going to be a very different day." Then he walked outside. The afternoon sunlight hit his face. For most people, leaving the diner would have meant walking away. But for Marcus Bennett, it meant something else. It meant the investigation had begun. Because he didn't just own Bennett's diner. He was responsible for what happened inside it. And now, the truth was no longer hidden behind the counter. "I've seen enough." Marcus Bennett stared at those words on his phone screen. 4 simple words. But behind them was a decision that would change everything inside Bennett's diner. The sun was beginning to set as Marcus sat inside his car outside the restaurant. For several minutes, he didn't move. He simply looked through the windshield at the building he had spent years creating. The same place where his mother once helped him serve customers when he had nothing. The same place that became the foundation of an entire hospitality empire. To most people, Bennett's diner represented success, growth, opportunity. But Marcus had just discovered something hidden beneath the polished surface. A problem that couldn't be fixed with a new advertisement or a company announcement. Because the problem wasn't the food. It wasn't the location. It was the people representing the name. Marcus unlocked his phone. Rachel Collins, his executive assistant, had already started gathering information. Customer complaints. Employee reviews. Management reports. Everything. A few seconds later, another message appeared. "Marcus, I'm sending the preliminary findings now." The documents loaded. Marcus read through them carefully. The first complaint was from 8 months earlier. A customer mentioned feeling ignored and disrespected by front counter staff. The second complaint described similar behavior. Different customer. Different day. Same location. Same employees. Marcus slowly scrolled. The pattern became clearer. Some customers were greeted warmly. Others were treated like interruptions. Some employees noticed. Some reported it. But nothing changed. Marcus leaned back in his seat. That was the part that bothered him the most. Not just the behavior. The silence afterward. Because a company could survive mistakes. A company could survive bad days. But a company could not survive a culture where people stopped caring. His phone rang. "Rachel." Marcus answered. "Tell me what you found." Her voice was serious. "Tyler Reynolds has been mentioned several times. Emily Carter appears in 2 reports as well." Marcus listened. "What about management?" A pause. "That's complicated." Marcus looked back at the diner. "Explain." "Some supervisors received complaints, but there's no evidence of proper follow-up." Marcus closed his eyes. He already knew the answer. The problem wasn't only the employees behind the counter. It was the system that allowed them to continue. How many people were affected? Marcus asked. Rachel hesitated. Too many. The words stayed with him. Too many. Not numbers. Not statistics. People. People who walked into a place carrying the Bennett name and walked out feeling smaller than when they arrived. Marcus remembered something his father told him when he was young. Marcus, leadership isn't about being the most powerful person in the room. It's about protecting the people who don't have power. Those words guided every decision he made. And now they were guiding him again. He ended the call. For a moment, he considered walking back inside. Revealing everything. Showing Tyler and Emily who he really was. But Marcus knew that would be easy. Too easy. Anyone could walk into a room and announce their authority. Real leadership required something more. Understanding. Evidence. Change. He needed everyone to see the truth. Not because the CEO was angry. But because the behavior itself was wrong. The next morning, Marcus arrived at Bennett Hospitality Group headquarters. Unlike the day before, he wore a tailored suit. The transformation was immediate. Employees who passed him in the hallway recognized him. Executives greeted him. Assistants followed. But Marcus's mind wasn't focused on his image. It was focused on one question. How many people had felt invisible inside a company built to serve them? He entered the conference room. Senior leaders were already waiting. Everyone knew something serious was happening. Marcus placed a folder on the table. "This is not a meeting about profits," he said. The room became silent. "This is about who we are." He opened the folder. "These reports are from one of our locations." Executives looked at each other. Marcus continued. "When customers walk through our doors, they shouldn't have to prove they deserve respect." Nobody spoke. Because everyone understood. This was bigger than two cashiers. This was about accountability. Marcus looked around the room. "We're going back to Bennett's diner." One executive asked carefully, "Today?" Marcus nodded. "Yes." He stood up. "Because if something is broken inside my company, I shouldn't learn about it from a report." A pause. "I should see it myself." And that was the moment the investigation became something more. It was no longer hidden. It was no longer private. Marcus Bennett was returning to the diner. But this time, he wasn't walking in as a customer. He was walking in as the person who built it. And everyone inside was about to discover the man they ignored was the one person they should have been paying attention to all along. "Wait, you're saying Marcus Bennett is coming here today?" The question came from Emily Carter the moment she saw the message appear on the office tablet. For a few seconds, nobody spoke. Because everyone inside Bennett's diner knew that name. Marcus Bennett. The founder. The owner. The man whose signature appeared on every major decision the company made. But what they didn't know was that he had already been there. He had already sat at their counter. He had already listened. And he had already seen everything. The morning at Bennett Hospitality Group headquarters moved quickly. Executives prepared documents. Managers reviewed policies. Employees whispered quietly through the halls. Rumors spread faster than official announcements. Something serious had happened. And everyone knew Marcus Bennett did not call emergency meetings without a reason. Back at the diner, Tyler Reynolds stood behind the register adjusting his uniform. Unlike the previous day, he seemed unusually nervous. He kept checking his phone. He kept looking toward the entrance. Because today was different. Today, the owner was coming. Tyler looked at Emily. "You think he knows?" Emily frowned. "Knows what?" Tyler lowered his voice. "You know." Emily looked away. For the first time, neither of them laughed. Because deep down, they both understood. People could ignore complaints. They could dismiss customers. They could pretend certain moments didn't happen. But they couldn't erase what had already been seen. The front doors opened. And the entire diner became still. Marcus Bennett walked inside. But this time, there was no hoodie. No simple jeans. No attempt to blend in. He wore a dark tailored suit. His posture was different. Not because he wanted to look powerful. But because he no longer needed to hide who he was. Every employee recognized him immediately. Jordan Williams, standing near the kitchen, froze. He had seen Marcus before. But seeing him walk in as the owner was something completely different. Tyler's face changed. The confidence disappeared. The same man he had ignored. The same man he had judged. The same man he thought was just another customer. Was standing in front of him. Marcus walked slowly toward the counter. No anger. No raised voice. Just silence. And somehow, that silence felt heavier than shouting. "Good morning," Marcus said. Nobody answered immediately. Then Tyler forced a smile. Mr. Bennett. Marcus nodded. Tyler. The way Marcus said his name made the room uncomfortable. Because it was calm. Too calm. Tyler swallowed. Sir, I didn't realize you were visiting this location. Marcus looked around the diner. That was the point. The words stayed in the air. Jordan looked down. Emily avoided eye contact. Marcus placed a folder on the counter. I came here because I wanted to understand something. He looked at every employee. What happens inside my company when nobody thinks I'm watching? Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Marcus opened the folder. These are customer complaints. Tyler's expression changed. These are employee concerns. Another pause. And these are reports that were never properly addressed. The room became silent. Marcus wasn't attacking anyone. He wasn't trying to embarrass anyone. He was simply presenting the truth. Tyler stepped forward. Mr. Bennett, I think there may be some misunderstanding. Marcus looked at him. Is there? Tyler hesitated. Yes. I mean, I always treat customers professionally. Marcus nodded slightly. Professionally? He looked toward the counter. Is that what we call it now? Tyler became quiet. Because Marcus wasn't talking about one conversation. He was talking about a pattern. A choice. A mindset. Marcus turned toward the employees. Let me ask everyone something. The entire diner listened. If the person sitting at that table had been wearing a designer suit, would he have been treated differently? Nobody answered. Because everyone knew the answer. Marcus continued. If the customer had looked wealthy, would the patients have been different? Still silence. And that silence said everything. Jordan finally spoke. Mr. Bennett, Marcus looked at him. Jordan took a breath. I should have said something sooner. Marcus nodded. Not with disappointment. With understanding. That's exactly why we are having this conversation. Marcus looked around the room. Because a problem doesn't survive only because of the people creating it. A pause. It survives because people become afraid to challenge it. The words hit everyone. Because they were true. Marcus didn't come back to the diner to reveal his identity. He came back to reveal the truth. And now, everyone inside Bennett's diner was finally seeing the reality. The quiet customer they ignored yesterday was the leader who had built everything they depended on. And the next thing Marcus said would decide what happened next. You weren't disrespecting a customer. Marcus Bennett's voice was calm. Steady. Almost quiet. But every person inside Bennett's diner heard every word. You are revealing who you become when you think nobody important is watching. The sentence stayed in the air. Because everyone understood what Marcus meant. This was never just about one customer. One conversation. One bad moment. It was about what happened when people believed certain lives mattered less than others. Tyler Reynolds stood behind the counter, unable to find the confidence he had carried just days before. The same confidence that allowed him to laugh. To judge. To make assumptions. Now it was gone. Because the person he had dismissed was standing in front of him. The person whose name was on the building. The person who had been listening the entire time. Marcus opened the folder again. Inside were pages of evidence. Customer complaints. Internal reports. Recorded concerns. Patterns that had been ignored. This isn't about a mistake, Marcus said. He looked directly at Tyler. Everyone makes mistakes. A pause. This is about choices. Tyler lowered his eyes. Emily stood beside him, silent. For the first time, she wasn't following Tyler's confidence. She was facing the consequences of her own silence. Marcus turned toward the entire team. I want everyone here to understand something. He placed the folder on the counter. This company was never built because of me alone. The employees listened. It was built because thousands of people trusted us. He looked around the diner. Customers trusted us with their time. Employees trusted us with their careers. Communities trusted us with their support. His voice became slightly heavier. And trust is not destroyed by one terrible moment. A pause. It is destroyed when people see something wrong and decide it is easier to ignore. Those words affected Jordan Williams. Because he knew Marcus was right. For months, he had watched things happen. Small comments. Unfair treatment. Customers leaving disappointed. And every time, he told himself the same thing. Someone else will handle it. But nobody did. Marcus looked at him. Jordan. Jordan stepped forward. Yes, sir. I want to ask you something. Jordan nodded. Did you know about these complaints? The room became tense. Jordan took a deep breath. Yes. Tyler looked at him immediately. Jordan, Marcus raised his hand. Not aggressively. Just enough to stop the interruption. Let him answer. Jordan looked down. I knew some customers felt uncomfortable. A pause. And I knew some employees had concerns. Marcus waited. But I thought speaking up wouldn't change anything. The honesty surprised everyone. Marcus nodded slowly. Thank you for telling the truth. Jordan looked up. Because he expected anger. Instead, he saw understanding. Marcus knew that fear could silence good people. But he also knew silence could allow harmful behavior to continue. Then Marcus turned back toward Tyler and Emily. This is not about destroying people. Tyler looked confused. Marcus continued. It is about protecting the standard. He picked up the folder. Every person who walks into this diner deserves the same respect. He looked toward the front door. The person wearing a suit. Then toward the customers sitting nearby. The person wearing a uniform. Then toward the employees. The person nobody notices. His eyes returned to Tyler. They all deserve the same thing. A pause. Dignity. The room remained silent. Because nobody could argue with that. Tyler finally spoke. Mr. Bennett, I never meant to cause harm. Marcus looked at him. I believe you. That answer surprised Tyler. But intention is not the only thing that matters. Marcus continued. Impact matters too. Tyler had no response. Because that was the difference. Marcus wasn't searching for excuses. He was looking at reality. A few minutes later, Marcus stepped away from the counter. The decision had been made. Tyler and Emily would be removed from customer-facing roles pending a full review. Management would undergo investigation. New training standards would be implemented across every location. But Marcus made one thing clear. This wasn't revenge. It was accountability. As employees watched him leave the counter, they finally understood something. The man they ignored had never needed to prove his power. He had shown it through patience. Through discipline. Through the choice to seek truth before judgment. Outside the diner, reporters and employees gathered as news of the investigation began spreading. But Marcus wasn't focused on headlines. He looked back through the window at Bennett's diner. The place where his dream began. The place where he had discovered a painful truth. A business could have the best food. The best location. The strongest brand. But without respect. It had nothing. And now Marcus Bennett had one final mission. Not just to fix one diner, but to make sure nobody inside his company ever forgot the value of the person standing in front of them. The greatest test of character is not how you treat the people who can help you. Marcus Bennett stood inside Bennett's diner, looking at the employees gathered around him. It is how you treat the people you believe have nothing to offer you. The words were simple, but they carried the weight of everything that had happened. The disrespect. The silence. The moments when customers walked through those doors and felt invisible. Marcus had entered the diner searching for answers. He had found them. But he had also found something else. An opportunity. Because leadership was never just about finding problems. It was about having the courage to fix them. In the weeks following the investigation, Bennett Hospitality Group began making changes. Not the kind of changes created for headlines. Not the kind designed to impress investors. Real changes. The kind people could feel. Every employee across the company went through new customer care training. But the training was not about memorizing polite phrases. It was about understanding people. Understanding that every person who entered a Bennett's diner carried a story. A struggle. A dream. A reason they were there. Managers were given new responsibilities. Not just to track sales. Not just to monitor performance. But to listen. To notice. To protect the culture they were responsible for creating. Marcus knew something important. A company's values were not proven by what was written on the walls. They were proven by what happened when nobody was watching. Several months later, Bennett's diner looked different. Not because the building had changed. The tables were the same. The kitchen was the same. The familiar smell of fresh coffee and homemade food still filled the air. But the atmosphere was different. People smiled because they meant it. Employees greeted customers because they respected them. And customers noticed. Jordan Williams became the new location manager. When Marcus offered him the position, Jordan was surprised. "I don't understand," Jordan said. "I stayed quiet when I should have spoken." Marcus looked at him. "And you admitted that." A pause. Growth begins when people are willing to face the truth. Jordan accepted the opportunity. Not because he was perfect. But because he was willing to become better. That was the kind of person Marcus wanted leading his company. Someone who understood that accountability was not about punishment. It was about responsibility. Meanwhile, Tyler Reynolds and Emily Carter's situation became a lesson throughout the organization. Their actions were reviewed fairly. Their behavior was addressed. But Marcus never wanted their story to become entertainment. He didn't want people celebrating someone's failure. He wanted people learning from it. Because the purpose was never revenge. The purpose was change. One afternoon, Marcus returned to the diner again. This time, he didn't come undercover. He didn't need to. He walked through the front doors wearing the same calm expression he always had. A young employee. Behind the counter smiled. "Welcome to Bennett's Diner. How can I help you today?" Marcus smiled. "Just coffee." The employee prepared the order. Simple. Normal. Exactly what he wanted to see. As he sat down, Marcus looked around the room. He remembered the day he had entered wearing a hoodie. The day nobody knew his name. The day people revealed who they truly were when they thought nobody important was listening. But Marcus had learned something too. Every person deserves respect. Not because of their wealth. Not because of their title. Not because of what they can provide. Simply because they are human. His phone buzzed. A message from Rachel. Bennett's Diner customer satisfaction is at an all-time high. Marcus looked at the message. Then placed the phone away. Numbers were good. Growth was good. Success was good. But those things were never the reason he built the company. He built it because he believed businesses had a responsibility. A responsibility to create spaces where people felt valued. Where people felt seen. Where people felt respected. Outside the window, customers continued walking into the diner. Different backgrounds. Different stories. Different lives. But inside those doors, they all received the same thing. Dignity. And that was the real legacy Marcus Bennett wanted to leave behind. Because true power was never about proving you were above others. True power was having the ability to lift others higher. The man they underestimated became the leader who changed everything. Not through anger. Not through revenge. But through patience, courage, and the quiet strength of someone who knew exactly who he was. And sometimes, the person everyone ignores is the person who has the power to change the entire room.